Good afternoon, and welcome to the official Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms live stream. My name is Dylan, and I had my notes here, but I clicked the window away, so that totally screwed up my momentum. I am coming to you live from our streaming closet here at Codename Entertainment in beautiful Victoria, BC, Canada. Before we begin, I would like to thank Wizards of the Coast for being the best ever partners to work with, and for graciously allowing us the use of this channel each week. There are so many great shows here, and it's actually kind of hard to keep up. But there's always something worth watching, especially on Thursdays. Today is sort of a full-on Q&A day. We're not going to be doing recaps of the things like the subreddit Q&A, because as you can see beside me, there is a guest already in the studio closet. And we will be doing another Q&A after. So you can totally check out the subreddit Q&A from yesterday at in the Idle Champions subreddit. It's probably still at the top. Yeah, the first guest is here, and beside me, there's gonna be a little bit of echo as I get this adjusted because the mic's just a little close. But yeah, this is Dave. Some of you know Dave. He hasn't been on much this year, but he is here to answer your technical Q&A, etc. related questions. And then in about an hour we will have Anna Prosser-Robinson joining us, schedule permitting, because I know we scheduled the chat, but she is crazy busy. She's just so busy all the time. So if you have any questions for Dave, who is the one of the company co-founders, a master of graphics, I think they keep saying.
They do say that.
So,
that's
yeah.
True. Yep.
And the guy who can answer all the questions that Justin can't. Although I don't know exactly where that line is, but it seems like there's some overlap. So yeah, if you have any technical, UI, etc. related questions, this is the guy. Somebody just says Dave answers the tickets. Yeah, he also does that.
That's true.
And of course, we will be doing some giveaways throughout the course of the stream, so that will also be happening. So, yeah, Lucothia says, I'm afraid we can't allow you to leave the stream now, Dave.
Oh
no. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of when the last time you were on stream was. It was probably in like January or something. Because you won the paper rock scissors last time, and then the time before that you were sick.
That's true. You didn't want to be in this room with me at all.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do it. You're like, no.
Yeah.
It's a small room. I don't blame you.
Oh, that's odd. So we have questions coming in already, which is good because we want those questions. Pointing at the wrong camera. When I click a bird but it doesn't crash to the ground and drop gold, do I get credit for it on the end screen?
If it doesn't crash to the ground and drop gold. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what circumstances it's occurring where it doesn't drop any gold, because usually it bounces off the edge of the screen. I mean, this is one of those cases where it hits the edge right as it's transitioning and you don't get to see it. It should, but I can't be sure without seeing it or a case reproducing it. So most of the time you get gold for them. It gets picked up, like all the gold gets picked up the moment it transitions to the next screen, and if it doesn't pick it up then it remains on screen until the next screen, which is another issue people have reported seeing. Bird hits, gold comes out, gold's still there on the next screen. Not 100% sure why it's reported as an issue, but that's how it happens. So, but if the bird doesn't hit the ground before it transitions over, then I think it does disappear, but not 100% sure.
Okay. Atarka69. David, did you embed a Bitcoin miner in the UI?
Listen, I'm not gonna. If I did, I'm not answering that.
I feel like you'd use more resources than the game uses. Era Bustikra. Why is the UI so crowded to make it hard to click the bird? Actually, I'm going to answer that one because there's this button up here in the top left corner that we installed upon request that does this. Makes it real easy to click birds.
Yeah.
So.
And as far as it went originally, the idea behind the birds was that they were kind of a bonus item, and we knew that pushing them up above the game area there was going to be an area that depending on what resolution you had or what you set your UI scale to could be a more difficult place to get them. And it was a trade-off. We decided we wanted to have them. We didn't want them to be on top of the main play area, so we knew it wasn't going to be exactly the same for everyone. But because it was a bonus, we felt it was reasonable.
Okay. Mystery Block Gaming. What's the icon above the big blue potion bottle? So I bought Evelyn chests to both because I like Evelyn, and I wanted a shiny, and I wanted chests, and I wanted to gear her out, and I wanted her golden epics. So this is what I got. Actually, one of these is from another gold chest. I got 2 epics in my 10 chests, including the golden epic. So that's about right. But yeah, that's the purchase buff that comes with it. So that's what that icon is. Yeah, and I'm just kind of using that with some epic potions like for gold find and champion damage and click damage, so that the familiars can help me push, because I want to push this as far as I can before resetting, because I haven't done any of the variants yet, but I like them when they're all easy and I'm going to get lots of stuff quickly, because it just makes them faster. So this is my second free play. All right, so let's see. Aran247. Oh, you'll like this one. Last night in my time zone, patch version 0.120 didn't have patch notes. What changed?
There was a number of minor fixes that are not necessarily confirmed fixes that went through. There's been a number of reports of the monsters stopping. Just that you leave it, you idle, come back, and there's no monsters. And we haven't been able to figure out exactly what's going on there, but Mark's been working on getting a number of different potential fixes in for that, and I think he dropped me like 3 or 4 different builds over the course of the day, and ended up pushing up the last one, which is the one that didn't have any patch notes. But effectively, there may or may not have been a fix or something that may have improved that particular situation, but we're not sure because we have been having a hard time reproducing it. So yeah, there were no notes on that one. It didn't have any changes in it other than a potential fix that we didn't want to get anyone's hopes up about.
Okay. So it's one of those situations where, like, if you confirm that you fix it, does it get added to another?
Yes, we'll push that out. If we confirm that did fix it, it'll likely end up in the next one. This was a case of there were some additional catches that Mark put in that we weren't sure if they were going to affect anyone or not, but we have been getting those reports, and our hope was that if we get those out, that any players who were still reporting it with that version would confirm whether or not that had made any difference.
Okay.
So it's not something we'd like to usually do, but it just sort of went down that way.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So let's see. Visibility of DPS on my tank. Always covered by mobs and monsters. Need to click on hero's card to see it, which covers the information about adding health bar to the hover text. So yeah, just tanks getting swarmed and not being able to see it. So I guess it's an observation / suggestion, more so than a question.
Yeah, I mean, that one's been on the list for a really long time, and we haven't come up with a good answer for it. I mean, it does eventually, or these things do slip off of our visibility, so it's good to bring it up again. But yeah, that's a long-standing one that we hope to eventually get a fix for that, or something that makes so you can see that better.
Okay. Yeah, I know that it's probably been coming up since our first stream, just about. It's one of those things. Because, like, there have been a number of improvements since then, like being able to see the enemy health bars, being able to mouse over them and see what enemy types they are, and stuff like that. But
right, and even in addition to the mouse over on the enemy, which has got the additional type, it's actually also on the list to add in there the enemy health, because I know that was requested recently, and now we actually have a place to put it. So that you should expect to see that in there in the next couple of patches.
Cool. Downane, why did the Marthane loot code not give me a chest for Evelyn Marthane? Because it's just the chest code for this week. There's like no guarantee that any one chest code does any one specific thing. But it's not an Evelyn chest. We tend to only give out 1 gold event chest through live stream each time, and I just realized that we're not live streaming next week, so this probably should have been one. So I'll find a way to fix that for everybody at some point. You're right, it probably should have been, but I'm just so used to our cadence of doing 1 gold chest code for the first week of the event, and then a gold event chest for the second week, that I forgot that we're not streaming next week because we're flying to LA for Stream of Many Eyes. So that's my mistake. You can, I don't know, feel free to meme me in a negative way. All right. Oh, this is a tough one. Waffles or pancakes?
Oh, waffles. I mean,
really?
They've got those little, like, all the little holes you can put stuff in, you know, for syrup and strawberries and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just works better. It works better as a syrup delivery system.
Yeah. I like buttering the whole thing and so that there's bits of butter in everyone, and then syruping it.
Right.
You know, maybe something else on top of it. So yeah. Yeah, which is something that I do like once or twice a year, because if I did it more than that, it would kill me. Alrighty. Tarkus69. David, can we get a GPS, I'm assuming gold per second, on the UI? Similar to DPS. Gold per second.
I mean, we could certainly get something that's a running total, or something that's, I mean, it's going to be, yeah, it'd be different based on your last previous, I mean, you'd have to run it over the course of a minute. We could do something like that. Probably something that would be a mouse over, not something that's sort of like front and center. We can make a mark or make a note of that one, and I'll add it to the list of things I want to look at.
Okay. How can I get champions I've missed?
That is something that we are working on. I assume this was a question that came up both last week and the week before.
I don't know that there's a week that it hasn't come up since Stokey became unavailable in September.
Right.
Yeah.
So that is underway. It's just not ready yet, but it's coming soon.
Don't say soon, Dave.
I put
it's
coming.
It's coming.
Air quotes around it.
It's definitely a priority, as there are more and more characters that are ones that people want, that they've missed. You know, like maybe somebody who loves dice camera action found out about Evelyn and then realized that they missed Strix. So
yeah, and then that's a really good reason to get that in there sooner than later. It's one of those things that we actually have a lot of other things that we're working on our plate that aren't necessarily front and center. As I was mentioning to Dylan as we were sitting down here, is a lot of the work that I've been working on is for unannounced as of yet features, and unfortunately, of course, I can't talk about those. And as
well, you could.
Well, yeah. I could, yeah. And then we get things like the tablet release, which obviously have been eating up a lot of our cycles. That again wasn't something that was obvious that we were working on at that time. So. So these things just end up getting on a big list of resources. So, but it's definitely coming.
Okay. Lacknar is asking a question that comes up a lot of late. They're asking for 4K support or something to increase the size of ultimate icons or something, but really just multiple resolution monitor, double monitor support, etc. Like full screen.
Yeah, I know the 4K
windowed
support.
borderless.
I mean, I'd be interested to know on the distribution of players asking for that, if it's on smaller laptop displays, if it's the biggest problem, or if it's on the larger 4K screens. At home, I have a 4K screen that when I play on that, it's at 1080p. It's actually a reasonable size because it's a 30-inch 4K. But I know a lot of people have laptops that have 4Ks on them, and if you pull it up on that, I mean, it's going to be really difficult to even make out any of the text. So I would like to see sort of what a distribution of that is. If that's primarily the problem, we could certainly prioritize looking at that. The big issue here is that actually we don't have any 4K workstation monitors, despite I know many people kicking at me to have.
Just saying, you know, I sent you a link to the one I want.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it's like the first ever 4K IPS, 144 millisecond refresh G-Sync. It was outlandish, but I still want it.
The kind of thing we'd have to garnish your pay for, right?
Don't say that. But yeah, certainly a 4K screen. Okay. This one is probably a better question for Justin, but any plans on introducing the evil clones of the Waffle Crew, like Evelyn, or Evelyn, I think it is in that one. So Strix and Evelyn have evil versions. Although
with the backwards name.
No, only one of them does. That was Paulton's character was Noutlip or Noplip or whatever.
Oh, I mean Evelyn versus Evelyn.
Yes, so Evelyn is the one that's in the game.
And
Evelyn was the evil version.
Yes.
I know. It was not. That was yeah.
It's confusing at any rate.
Yeah.
That is definitely a question for Justin.
Yeah. Are we planning to add the evil clones? It's a I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. Era Bostekra, are there known issues with leaving the game running for a while? I find sometimes if I leave it running at a wall for a day or so, it starts to lag out and send error reports. Is this spamming you with error reports?
In general, there aren't any known issues with leaving the game running for, I just tried a couple of days there. I think it is possible that if something does go wrong, if it does end up in a state where it's lost its connection to the servers, that it can end up in a state where it ends up just looping on an error. In general, I mean, I wouldn't worry about sending too many error reports. I receive a lot of error reports on your account. We can take a look at them. I mean, it's our goal to make it so the game can run for extended periods of time, and obviously as an idle game that means days to weeks. But obviously there's some like limitations on that. But yeah, I haven't gotten a lot of reports of issues for multiple day runs, so I'm not entirely sure what you could be seeing there. So.
Okay. This is another Justin question, but I'll ask you anyways. Dandy87, could we have it so that in event-free plays, the further you progress after Area 50, the better the chances of getting a gold event chest?
I mean, yeah, that's definitely a question for Justin, but it doesn't strike me as completely outlandish.
Okay. This is another similar one to the last one. David, why does the game run so heavily on the system? It started to get more demanding ever since the Strix event. I've spoken with many that agree.
I mean, that's a question of exactly what you mean by heavily. I mean, are we looking at high CPU load? Are we looking at higher GPU load? Are we looking at just like visually seeing more stuttering? Is this something that if you go back to the older content that you don't see? Like, is it something potentially to do with the way particular graphics are laid out? I know there's a long-standing issue that we really need to get around to, but it always ends up being just forgotten about when it comes to time for the art stuff. But it's the fire elementals are they've got too many little pieces, and so anytime we have the old style fire elemental out, that can cause some latency, especially if you've got a slower machine. But that's sort of the only one that I'm aware of as far as complexity goes there. So yeah, like I say, further details would be helpful. But if it's only on the more recent levels, and if you go back and play one of the earlier ones and it's fine, then it might have something to do with some of the assets in there, and we can take a look.
Okay. There's certainly people agreeing with you about the fire elementals.
Yeah. Actually, if anything, one of the things that came up for the prepping for the tablet was that we ended up doing quite a number of optimization passes and cleaned up quite a few cases that would have had a negative impact on performance, just because obviously the tablet had some had higher limitations. What's the best word to describe that?
Higher degree of
the hardware on the tablets is not as good as your Windows hardware. And so we needed to make it perform better. And so that, just because it's actually the same code base, because the game is made in Unity, all of those enhancements for performance for the tablet were ported over to the PC version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Plausibly sane. Is an auto clicker frowned upon?
I think the answer is yes, but what have we said for this before? Like, it's
when it comes to things like scripting, because a lot of people ask about it, like, we don't have an official policy for or against it. We just kind of let people do it. Auto clickers kind of fall into the same thing. Obviously, there are familiars in the game, and we would prefer that you unlocked or purchase familiars and use those. But that being said, it's kind of like a use at your own risk thing. So if you want to use something else, I mean, we're not here to police how you enjoy the game, because people enjoy games in different ways.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I know it's come up occasionally in tickets around people doing things to manipulate the game, and my personal take on it has always been that if you do things that manipulate your game in a way that break the game, then you're ruining your personal enjoyment of it, because it takes out any of the challenge.
Okay. I can't read that name. I was going to try, but I would have screwed it up. Have you thought about having a hero that buffs click damage? Think of something like a hero that acts like a potion of fire breath. A wizard that has a version of improved familiar as a specialization, and the other specialization adding a free familiar on the screen to click enemies, that kind of thing. That's a Justin question. Justin handles champion design, more or less, for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Bushwhacker, right, from Crusaders.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And so certainly that was something that we've done before, obviously not in this game, but the game that a lot of the model here was built from. So it's certainly something we could do. I mean, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do something like that, other than for some reason Justin's not fond of the click damage stuff. I think he mentioned last week when he was on stream that one of the things that we tried was to pull click damage out.
Yeah,
so
weren't able to completely remove it, but at the same time, what was it? There were problems with it if it wasn't there at all.
Yeah, well, especially getting started, that it made it so you couldn't help out in a way that it just wasn't. It was a lot more fun to be able to, when you were getting started, to be able to click and help everyone move along. And what we were trying to do was have it so that you could click on the characters and have them attack faster, so that there you could pull down their attack timers on them.
Oh yeah, change the swing timer if you're clicking on them, which is kind of a strange way to play, I would imagine.
It was difficult to message, and it just wasn't as much fun as being able to reach out and hit the monsters yourself.
Yeah.
So I think as the game progresses, it's sort of depending on whether or not you've got like your fire breath potions active or not, it starts to lose sort of that sort of impact that it had originally, and so it's not quite as much fun. But I mean, a hero like that could turn the tables on that.
There might be a way to do something design-wise that does it, but I wouldn't say that it's a focus as far as I know.
No, it hasn't been something that's really come up, but it could. I mean, I could see it. I could see it being a thing.
Okay, this one's from BioGyver. Wow, nobody's referenced Guyver for me in a long time. Hey, Dylan and David, I was wondering, will there be any more improvements to the familiar system, like having them hovering over your champions in the bar to upgrade them instead of sticking them to one? I mean, the canned response about familiars is that like we've received a lot of feedback about familiars, and we can acknowledge that like, okay, there's a lot of room for them to potentially grow and to work around it, but we don't have anything official.
Yeah, I mean, I think any and all systems in the game that the player interacts with could be automated, and so it's just a matter of figuring out which ones make the most sense to make automated by a familiar. Yeah, I mean, we've seen in other idle games, I mean, every system in the game you can put an auto clicker on. So it's something that we did want to look at going forward. I know on that one, especially when we were putting the familiars together, we had a big list of these would be nice to have. We just haven't gotten around to looking at that system in more detail yet.
I would think that a system like that, especially when you're launching with 3 that you can unlock through free play and 3 that you can only unlock through purchasing, that if you had 50 options for them, it would be just too much for the small number of clickers that you have. So
yeah, and as we add more familiars, that would make more sense. I think that if we add more options, what you see at the same time is additional familiars being made available. So it's less of a choice and more of like you can fill it all out.
Okay, all right. Bloop BC. IAPs are broken on tablet. They said mobile, but this game isn't on mobile, it's on tablet. Are there plans on getting this fixed anytime soon?
We are well aware that the IAPs on iOS are not working right now, and we are getting that fixed as fast as we can.
Do you want to give our audience a bit of insight into why things might take a little longer to fix on Apple than on...
Yeah, the Apple review process is a little bit different than what you see on Android or for Steam. The Steam and the Google processes are actually almost completely self-serve. You put your builds up, you set your data, and you just push go, and it goes out to whichever devices you've specified as what that push is for. When you do a build for Apple, the Apple build gets put into a review queue, and then someone at Apple actually goes through and makes sure that it's all technically working correctly. And as a clarification, because I know this came up from one of the posts that was brought to my attention, was that it's not a content review. They're not going through and checking to make sure that all the content fits content guidelines. It's a technical review to make sure that all of the features that you say you've included are functioning. And that queue actually can take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours just to get through. And then if something in there isn't working exactly as they're expecting, that can end up being a rejection, and then you're back in the beginning of the queue again. So we've had some technical challenges with the initial setup of the in-app purchases, and that's had us run through the queue a couple of times at this point. So as it stands, at this very moment, we are again waiting for Apple to review it, which could be anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. But we think we've got it all sorted out. So at this point, once that goes through, then the in-app purchases will work. But it's a frustrating process sometimes because you don't get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, it's obviously not intentional on our end to
absolutely
have that
not,
happen. Yeah. Okay. So we have one. It's a follow-up to the waffle question. Why do you use syrup? Applesauce on waffles is best. No. First of all, the best waffles is the Owl Bear on Dice Camera Action. But no, putting applesauce on waffles, that's, oh God, blasphemy.
Not my go-to either.
Yeah.
I mean, after the first comment on syrup, it actually occurred to me whipped cream and some sort of a fruit sauce.
Or like creme fraiche or something.
Yeah.
There are a lot of good options in the city for waffles. We like brunch in Victoria. There's a lot of options. Okay. Alrighty, Creepy Monster 83. Can you give examples of how to make the most of Evelyn? Yeah, actually, I'm using Evelyn front and center right now. I don't know if you can see. It's going to be a little bit trickier depending on what your gear level is. So I made the purchase to get the $10. What is it, like seven gold chests? I don't know. Whatever the minimum purchase. Yeah, 7 gold chests and a guaranteed shiny, as long as they're golden epic. So like I have reasonable loot on her. She's kind of like she buffs about as well as Ashara for me, and maybe even a bit better if she's getting hit. And since they rolled out a hotfix earlier today on our end that adjusts her hit point curve to stay relevant longer, more in line with other tank champions, she can be front and center in front of Naily and still buffing the entire party. Like if I mouse over her, everybody behind her she buffs, and when she gets hit, she buffs them even better. So yeah, she's my tank. She's like the new Naily for me, and I'm gonna have to change my formations in the other campaigns just because I'm so used to having Naily front and center. So other than that, I mean, even if she's not in front, as long as she's in front of whoever your DPS is, she buffs quite well. Unless your Ashara is buffed better or better geared. So other than that, yeah, I got nothing else at the moment. She's a really strong tank for me. Royal Gentleman, when are we getting a samurai?
That's a good question. I know we have a ton of characters in the queue for characters we want to do, and I'm not sure that any of them are samurai.
No, it was in 5e. Samurai has only been around since Xanathar's Guide to Everything came out as a fighter subclass. But I can't, off the top of my head, think of any Forgotten Realms characters that are samurai. So that makes it a little bit tougher for us, is that we have these lists that we're working off of in terms of looking for the characters that we want. We have, the lists of like the canonical Forgotten Realms characters that we know we have immediate access to because Wizards of the Coast definitely owns the rights to them, whether they're produced for books or for comics like Minsk and Delana, etc. And so we have that list of characters, none of whom are samurai that I can think of off the top of my head. And then we have the list of characters that we love on shows like Strix and Evelyn and Archon that we kind of just work our way through, but there's a lot more behind the scenes cogs in that machine that have to all be working, basically making Clive very, very busy to make those kinds of things happen. And then so in the event that we wanted to add a samurai that we don't have, and we can't think of anybody from one of those lists, we would probably make one up. I don't know if or when that'll happen, but that's kind of just, yeah, we have a lot of characters we want to add and some gaps, so yeah, that's when that comes in.
It's been a while since we had a character that we just made up.
Narak,
Stokey?
3 events ago.
Okay.
Narak, and then before that it was Zorbu, and before that it was, what was it? Stokey, Grama, Krond, Narak, and Zorbu are the 5 that we've made so far.
Okay, that's more than I was
2 of them
thinking.
are monks because there's like no canonical monk characters, pretty much. So whenever we want to balance out classes to add a monk, that's what happens. Yeah. Okay. Actually, I don't know the answer to this next question, but maybe you will. Smolf007, is the number / color of rays on the sun above Evelyn dependent on her level of skills?
That is a good question. I asked Justin for clarification on this earlier. As I mentioned, actually, a lot of the work that I've been working on has been, the new stuff, which I can't talk about, has been my focus, and so I haven't actually been paying as close attention to this as I should be. But as her buffs power up, it's the number of filled-in rays on the sun there increase. And I think at least one of them was tied to one of the later upgrades. So some go up as you take hits, and another one was based on like the level of the upgrade. Can you confirm?
I haven't used her enough to know, but it's something to do with having all of her specializations, because they only all light up for me when she's in the front and she has all of her abilities. I haven't used her enough yet. Like, this is my first run trying to use her as a viable tank following the hotfix. Oh, no, Mark is in chat answering questions. Thank you, Mark. I'll leave that one to you and move on. All right, are you thinking about supporting Linux?
No.
Oh, well, that settles that.
We occasionally get a request for someone who's running on Linux, but adding another platform adds a lot of overhead to all the builds we have to put out and then things we have to support. We just don't have enough demand for it.
Yeah. So the next question is from Emmy995 asking, are the rest of the Dice Camera Action crew going to be in Idle Champions? And that's a tough question for us to answer to any real degree. I can say that all of these characters are owned by their character creators. So, Evelyn is owned by Anna Prosser-Robinson, and Strix is owned by Holly Conrad. So we have to have agreements with each member of the party. So we would very much like to add the entire Dice Camera Action crew. But that's about all I can say about that right now, unfortunately. Dranicos, will the way to get old event champions we missed also include a way to get gear for them?
Absolutely. They're not going to be all that useful if they're just empty.
They're naked.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Dudes McCool 5150. Any plans for characters from Critical Role to join the game? Like Dice Camera Action, we would love for that to happen. Oh, excuse me. We would love it. I mean, we're fans of Critical Role here. Well, at least a bunch of us are. Have you ever watched Critical Role?
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of it. And they have now 2 campaigns full of awesome characters, just played by the lead actors, never mind guests. And we would love to. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in order for that to work out. So we would also love that, but we have nothing that we can announce or talk about related to it. Sorry. All right. Now that we have Modrons, can we get Nordom from Planescape Torment? So, funny thing about this. So, and I can actually speak to this too. So the only reason we're doing a Modron event is because I mentioned it to Justin a while back, and there happened to be a gap in the event schedule. He's like, "Oh, I could do that at the end of May." Not in that voice, but that's the best Justin voice I can do. It's based off of a pretty old module. Now that being said, the other thing is that Modrons are like an underutilized enemy. I think they're in the 5e books, but nothing else about them has been officially put in any 5e books yet. At least as far as I know. Maybe they're working on something. We tried to be as canonical as we can in terms of how they're in the game and how they're utilized, and luckily we have Scott Fitzgerald Gray writing the game, who I'm sure has played the original Planescape thing, but he has a very intimate history with D&D, and so I think we did our research in doing a good job of integrating them. But that being, there is no Modron campaign for 5e, so it's like this was us reaching a little bit more outside of our general Forgotten Realms Faerun stuff, just because when the Modrons march, they march through all the planes, and they just kind of like take the same route every time, and so they march through Faerun, and they march near Waterdeep. They go through Undermountain, I think, in the books, and in the previous module. But are we going to have any other Planescape characters or anything else from Planescape Torment? Not that we can talk about. PN Fear. Is there any work being done on OSX performance issues? After about 5 to 8 hours, clicking is nearly impossible because it freezes the game, and it becomes unstable enough that it needs to be force killed and restarted.
That is not something that I'm familiar with. Actually, I haven't seen any reports of OSX performance issues. No, I'm not familiar with that being an issue. So, if you are having that issue, if you want to submit some further details to me via ticket, we can see if there's anything we can figure out is actually behind that. But it's not something that I get. Like I said, I haven't actually had any reports of that recently. So,
okay. We got a question from MKFV that this actually was already fixed. So, is it a bug that Evelyn's health is capped, or is it by purpose? So there was actually a hotfix that was rolled out a few hours ago now that has adjusted her health curve. So chances are Evelyn's health is no longer the issue that you thought that it was, and it actually rolled out on our end, not yours. So it should be fine for you now.
Yeah, I think anyone would have to, or you'd have to close and restart your client to get that.
Would you have to restart?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because
I didn't have to do that, and it worked for me. I think.
You should have had to, because it would have come up with your game.
Actually, I wouldn't even know right now because I had to shut down my client to move it to the computer anyway. So I could be wrong.
That would have done it.
Ignore me. I'm an idiot. What he said is the right thing.
Game doesn't magically download new data.
Yeah, but it'd
be nice if it did.
But it should. Okay. Isret, is it intended that we can't swap pre-made formations while our front line is being attacked?
I mean, it's intended that you can't swap out, or can't use it as a mechanism to swap out characters that you're not supposed to be able to swap out. I think what you'd end up with, if that was allowed, would be a partial formation check, or a partial formation change, rather. And I'm not sure where we landed on that exactly, because I know we discussed it. If currently when you do that it doesn't let it swap, then we landed on making it so that the formations stayed as whatever the actual saved formation was. I think it was just because players were trying to take advantage of that as a way to jump around or to get around the fact that you can't swap the ones in the front. But beyond that, I'm not sure that there's any reason why we can't take a look at that again and see if it made sense. But I think it was just locked out because it would let you get around swapping the champions in the front. So.
So like, is there a way for us to fix it, or is like, what do we?
I mean, like, I think it was just a decision on what we were allowing or not at the time. I'm not. Off the top of my head, I can't think of a good reason why we wouldn't let you do that, and it would just not swap the ones that were under attack. So I mean, I think that could be reconsidered, but we'll have to talk about it.
Okay. Lauren Wister, we can hide the top of the UI. Would we ever be able to hide the bottom?
It's not a request that we've seen on a regular basis. Just to take a screenshot, or I guess the question would be why. Would be the first question.
I mean, nothing active ever happens down there, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that. It's not going to break anything. I just don't think it's been requested.
Okay. Yeah, so that might happen. Alrighty, OG17. Sorry if this was mentioned, but will chat be getting the ability to highlight and copy text? People always post guides, screenshots, codes, etc., and it's not very usable.
Probably not. The chat is, like, the text in the chat is actually done as graphics. It's not actually standard text, so it doesn't have any of those features for selecting or copying or pasting or any of that stuff, unfortunately. And that would require us to actually go in and rebuild one of those systems to do it. And at this point, we just have so many other things that are on the plate for developer time that it's way at the bottom. So.
Okay.
So it's not something we turned off on purpose. It was a limitation of the system, because it's literally, the text is not text, it's graphics, and so we'd have to build that system. So.
Okay. Oh, my question's moved. Dio Godino, are there any plans to add a way to summon powerful allies for a limited time, like a planar ally scroll that comes in chests and adds a random ally to the party?
I mean, that's not something that
I don't think I've heard that one before. I like it.
Around, but I mean, yeah, it's totally something we could do.
Okay, Shaz we have a loot journal. Could we have this output to a text or JSON XML file?
Probably not. That said, you could probably make the call yourself and get that data.
Okay, so Zappin28. Dylan, are you or anyone from CNE playing in any of the Stream of Many Eyes? So if you're asking if we're playing in any of the games at the event, we are not. We are not interesting, cool, or important enough to be at any of those tables, because I've seen the lists of who are, and like, they should be there, not us. That doesn't mean we won't be playing any D&D, but we won't be playing any D&D on camera. Yeah. But that said, Eric, Clive, and I will be in costume at the event, and people will see us on camera from time to time. So, yeah, tune in, and hopefully we won't embarrass ourselves too badly with our LARPing. All right, next question. Did you guys ever think about adding style gear that also changes maybe the stats like charisma and dexterity, so that certain heroes can get different buffs from other heroes? That would be so nice.
So at least the first part of that is something that we have discussed, the idea of having like costume pieces that could be just cosmetic. It's something that like I said, it's an idea that we've kicked around. The challenge with that is that we'd end up having to do a lot of additional art for it. So at this point, it's not something that is underway, but it is something that we've talked about. It might make sense in the future for certain events, but it's probably not something that I would expect to see anytime soon. The actual functionality change of that, like the difference of charisma or dexterity, that is an interesting idea. I can run that by Justin and see what he thinks about that. It might actually make it more, or give more reason to have that sort of thing. But I think it's just an additional dimension at this point that we're not ready to deal with.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, there's certainly precedent in terms of magical items in the game, in D&D, not in our game, where you could have something that increases somebody's strength or whatever.
Yeah,
so like the options are there, but
yeah, the equipment doesn't do any of that. But I think it's largely because the actual stats don't have a huge impact on most things. Like some additional formation abilities have been using that. And it's something that we started adding in, 3 or 4 months ago. Like it wasn't something that we started with as a design to be able to have those stats actually do anything. And so now that they have started having some impact on the abilities, having buffs that change them is certainly a natural progression for that. Yeah.
Okay. Just hold the head. God. Plans to save familiar assignments with formation saves.
That's something that came up initially when the familiars were released. The question on that is sort of whether or not it's more. Holy smokes, it's a lot of questions. The question on that really is how much time that's actually saving, as well as a lot of them had places that didn't make sense until you'd actually unlocked a bunch of heroes. So if you'd specified a whole bunch of the ones down on the bottom bar on your different hero upgrades, if you're load formation, they could just disappear, or rather, they just wouldn't go anywhere. I know where we landed on it after the initial set of formation or of familiars was that it was actually pretty straightforward just to drag them off the bar there, like because you can actually drag them directly from the icon there. I don't know if Dylan has any handy there.
Yeah, what are we trying to do?
If we're just dragging the familiars out from the familiar button next to the inventory button.
Oh wait. So you just click on it.
So you can just click and drag. So basically, our feeling was that was really quite easy to lay them back out. So it sort of added more complicated steps to attempt to do formation or familiar formation saves. So we thought we'd wait and see if that was something that was really highly demanded.
Okay.
And at this point, it hasn't been. So.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, I've certainly seen the feedback a few times, but it happens. So yeah, maybe we'll. I don't know. I mean, the familiars will probably get an overhaul or a serious pass at some point. So
it's one of those things that would likely add additional features to them over time. And if it ends up or if it turns out that it makes sense to have familiar formation saves once it's a little more complicated, then it's something we'll revisit then. But for now, like I say, it's pretty simple to get them out there, and it hasn't been a highly requested feature. It's been an offhanded requested feature. So
okay. All right, let's see. Hey guys, asked last time if there's a possibility to be able to minimize character UIs for champions you don't use to avoid misclicks and keeping everything together.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long-standing question at this point. Some thought has been put into it, but we haven't come up with a solution we liked for that, and it always comes with the counter worry that people would hide champions that they intended not to, and or forget that they were hidden or not know where they were, or accidentally click the wrong thing on that. And while that sounds sort of offhand, it is something that we often get reports of in other games that we've got, where people will put a piece of equipment on, for example, one that makes them invisible, and then we'll later get a ticket about why is my character invisible. So we just want to limit the confusion as much as possible there. And so we'd want to do it in a way that was really obvious that champions were hidden. So it would need more dedicated thought.
Okay. This one is from Melodious Thonkvi. Is Charlaxle the Jar Jar Binks of the game? He seems underpowered and just a fodder hero for the next incoming heroes.
Wow. I mean, that's in many ways a Justin question, although I would really hesitate to compare anyone to Jar Jar Binks. That's a really low blow.
I just have to type this out. I'm sorry, I'm disengaging from everybody to do this, but I have to juggle a few things at the same time right now. Oh, we can't answer the next question. Dunatus, any word on the third major campaign? Nope. Ask again in a while. Alright, Queen Lily 272. You said no to a bestiary before, but what about just a gallery? I love the art of the monsters and would love to be able to see them up close.
I mean, it's a good suggestion. It's something that we'd have to find time to do. And so, like I say, it's a good suggestion. We need to see everything, and I know that a lot of time has been put into making all those monsters look as awesome as they do. So it would be pretty cool to have a gallery for them, but it's not something we have time to look at anytime soon.
Alrighty, next question. Hi David, the UI still blacks out along with the background upon scene changes. It's a bit of a nagging inconvenience and seems needless. Can we get that changed?
We looked at that and it looked bad, or at least we felt it looked bad when the UI was underneath the transition. As a compromise, what we did was we made it so you can continue to click through it. So if you're in the middle of leveling someone up and the scene transitions, you can keep clicking. It will keep leveling that character up. The background doesn't block clicks. But when we looked at it with the UI over top of it, we just found that it really didn't look appealing. So we're not going to do that.
Cool. No, I'm going to skip that one because we can't even start to talk about it. When we have a familiar set to upgrade a hero, can we have that familiar appear next to the hero on the screen? Makos needs his gazer.
That's an interesting.
It's interesting
idea.
because he's a warlock. He should have a familiar, right? Right? Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a thought. Maybe. I'm gonna go with maybe on that one.
Okay. David, any reason to pause the action during full screen pop-ups, chests, store, etc.? It messes with Birdsong's timers.
I think the chest screen or the store screen does pause the game. I think that's the only one that does. I know I had someone mention this before and they thought the map might be doing it as well, though it didn't look to me as though it was. I think in general it's just to make sure that there was something weird with the gold find on that one. I can't be 100% sure what the I know there was some reasons for that, but additionally you can still hear everything happening in the background and it's a little bit disconcerting. And then it does resume on its own, so if for some reason you left it up, like if you'd opened the store and then wandered off for some reason, after about 5 minutes the game resumes underneath. But yeah, I understand it affects the real-time timers on things. Yeah, I don't really have a strong answer for that other than the game playing underneath it was distracting. So.
Okay. I mean, certainly if you're at a point where you're worried about whether or not you wipe, or you're coming back and your characters are not doing great and you're like, oh crap, and you're like trying to level things up really quickly, you would...
Yeah, I mean, I know the initial arguments around the pausing when dialogues were up, because this came up originally with Crusaders, was that we didn't want players to worry about what was happening underneath. Didn't want to panic and go back to the game if you were in the middle of looking at something on one of the character screens. So we didn't want it to be a worry. But I know we sort of, as that progressed, that particular concern sort of was one that we stopped having because players got used to the idea that the game was just going to be running constantly. But I know it was, especially early on, it was one of those concerns. It's like the people would worry that their characters were wiping underneath and this was a bad thing. When really, wiping isn't really a bad thing. It's sort of, it happens. You move back and you move forward.
Yeah. Okay. So next question, has there been any discussion lately about improving the in-game journal? Or maybe this is a separate question, but I'm specifically interested in a quick/convenient way to read through the conversations and story for missions, not necessarily the one that I'm playing.
It has come up. The in-game journal is a little bit, well, there's room for improvement, let's put it that way. But it's not something we've put as a high priority item, just because there's a lot of other features we want to get to first. But it is definitely something that needs improvement. So hopefully we can get to that eventually. But yeah, it's a lower priority item right now, but it does need improvement.
Okay. All right. So next question. So no such thing as hot fixes with Apple? Question mark.
No, unfortunately. Has to go through the review process every time, so we have to actually be a little more vigilant with fixes on that one. And have everything ready ahead of time. That's something that we actually are working to get ahead on, especially with having to do the Apple builds, is having some of these features ready sooner than they were before. So yeah, no hot fixes with Apple.
Because the other thing about that is, never mind not being able to hotfix, like how long does it take when you submit something to Apple? How long does it take for them to even get back to you?
And it's inconsistent, but like I say, it's anywhere between 24 and 48 hours. So it's a long wait. Yeah.
Okay. That's tough. Alrighty. Ixniz, regarding characters in the queue. Any updates regarding Vass and Kale? Nope. Codename Entertainment. Any more heroes from the Baldur's Gate game series to be added? I can't really comment on that. It's certainly possible. Is there any plan in adding Athrogate, the Dwarven Barbarian Battle Rager? Another chat. You guys are all asking about champions. Like, this is Dave. Dave doesn't do champions. All right. So next one. Candyman, will you have the real life person that plays Evelyn on the show? That is the plan. She should be joining us in like about 10 minutes, assuming her schedule doesn't blow up or something. Because yeah, Anna Prosser is crazy busy. She's doing many things. Dunatus 2K, any plans to give guaranteed chances for shinies, like with gear upgrades, albeit slower? 1 in 1,000 regular, 1 in 100 golden.
Yeah, and that's something that in general we haven't discussed. I mean, right now the best way to get a guaranteed shiny is to get the ones that come in the chest packs, and I think that's one of those ones that it's kind of a balance when it comes to providing value for monetization, like value for if you're gonna buy items in game, that does have to have enough. I mean, it has to be. What's the best word for it?
Good. It has to be worth it.
It has to have good value. Like, we want to make sure that that if you are actually purchasing chests, that you get something that you really want, and so getting a guaranteed shiny is one of those things that makes it worth it. So
yeah, okay. This is a good question. I like this one. David, what would you like to see fixed in the GUI?
I think I'd have to think about that for a little while.
Well, you have 7 to 10 minutes.
I think I'd have to think about it, but additionally, there are things in there that I would mention but I can't talk about. So
okay.
So I'm gonna leave it with that.
All right. I will. Let's see. Lauren Wister wants to know if we will ever include the origin of a character in their bio, for those of us less knowledgeable in D&D lore.
I mean, that is something that I know a piece that is underway that I don't know that I'm not super concerned about sharing with you guys, is that we are working on improving the character screen, and on the character screen, on the improved character screen, is a very specific location for additional information about that character, whether that's the background information, the actual lore for that character, or if that has something to do with the if it's a character for someone like from Critical Role, for example, information about how that character was created and who created it, and then any external links for that. So that sort of information is information that we're looking to improve upon on the character sheet, and there's a redesign coming for that. I can't give a date on when it's coming, but it is something we're working on, and so some additional character for data will be there, which I think for some of them does include the origins.
Yeah, because it's certainly with a mix of characters that are, some characters from Force Grey, some characters from the IDW comics and other books and Baldur's Gate, and then some from, it's from a diversity of sources. So yeah, that'll be helpful. Okay. Could we get a UI element to show effective DPS, including, for example, Regis's debuff?
I think that is something that's coming. There's been some work with there's been some work on the offline gold find items, and I'm not sure if that's...
Yeah, I think Justin got into it a bit, saying that part of the reason that offline gold gain hasn't been done so quickly is that coming up with a more accurate DPS number in the corner of the screen that better tracks all the different things going on was the biggest component of it, which also plays into this because it'll make that number a much more accurate number.
Yeah, the interaction of all the individual buffs greatly affect what your actual offline gold, or what your actual playing gold find is, and it also greatly affects sort of what your actual damage is. And it's really difficult to get a number that represents that that isn't jumping all over the place constantly. And so that is something that was a big challenge for the offline gold find, is to get that more accurate, but also to have a representative number for that tells you something that's meaningful and isn't just some kind of crazy number that's going up and down and up and down and up and down. So it has been something that we've been working on, but it wasn't a quick or easy thing to find a solution for.
Okay. Will there be a bigger font option for the journal?
I mean, there could be. I haven't heard any requests for a larger, or for fonts on the journal. So I mean, if you have a specific issue with the font size, like if you're on a really small, or maybe this is just a following of like the 4K problem. That if you want to send me a ticket and mention and show me exactly what it is that the issue is, I think it could be a 4K problem here they're discussing or describing.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it hasn't been something that's been asked. So I mean, if you would like to have a bigger font and you can show me a use
font
case
scaler
for it,
font scaler, Dave.
I'll consider it.
Font scaler. Okay.
Font scaler.
I'll talk. David, anything holding back distractions in more screens/scenes?
No, that's just a matter of making sure we get them put in. The information that controls what distractions are shown as part of the background, and we just need to actually make sure that's set properly on all the different backgrounds. So I think some of them that didn't have one, it was an oversight on some of them.
Okay. I don't know what this means. Do you know what that means? How many Lambos do you have?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
It's probably referencing something that we don't get because we're old. Alrighty, any plans to make more differences between enemies? Skeletons with range, resistance, magic vulnerability, health differences. Right now there are some speed differences for a few and unique bosses, but not much else. If they're asking whether or not Dave has a Lamborghini, he doesn't, he has a truck. I've seen it.
Yeah, I drive a Ford Ranger.
Yeah.
It's really glamorous.
It's easy to drive.
It works in the city. It's easy to park. Sorry, we can go back to the previous question there. It was...
oh yeah, so right. Differences between enemies, so like sometimes range resistant or magic vulnerable or health differences. So I guess they want to see more variety in terms of how the party interacts with the enemies on screen.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. That's definitely something that we're always looking at. If we can, slowly adding those features in.
Yeah, that would be. So yeah, Anna working to join us. And I guess I didn't turn the notification sound off. So sorry for that. If it was loud in my ears, it was probably way louder for you. All right, any chance to let us see how many stacks Evelyn has of her being attacked buff, like the one that Naily have?
That's a Justin question.
Yeah, but I'll make a note. Okay, next. We got 2 more questions, and then luckily we have a guest, so the timing is perfect. All right, Birdsong has a shield icon and a heart icon that gets 3 clefts surrounding it. These cover a lot of her art, and the heart itself functionally does nothing. Could they be consolidated into a single icon that gets 3 clefts around it?
I mean, they could. I mean, I'm not... It's really just a style question, I think, on that. I would have to see if there was a functionality issue with it. I haven't heard a lot of complaints about that, other than that we didn't really make it super clear what they meant. So I think what we'd probably do first would be make it more clear what exactly those icons meant before we sort of changed up what they look like. But I think it's just that's a style question. So.
Okay. And then let's see. GUI question. Can we move those little 4-button sidebars to the top of the screen and then expand the champion bar? It would save lots of scrolling back and forth for leveling up champions. So this, I think. Whoops. I guess they're just seeing this part here on the other side.
I don't know that it would actually save that much scrolling, unfortunately. Maybe get half another portrait in there. I don't think so. Sorry.
Okay. And then last question, David. Any plans to fix the resolution affecting Strix's poor hygiene so that we don't have to constantly rework our resolution or restarting levels because range mobs decide to stop a pixel or two out of range?
Yes. We were talking about this actually just before the stream, and the issue, I guess, isn't that the resolution's affecting Strix's poor hygiene. Strix's poor hygiene is actually properly mapped to a percentage of the distance from the formation, but the ranged monsters do stop a fixed distance in pixels from the formation, and so their positioning is the issue. So the ranged monsters should actually stop at a percent distance rather than at a fixed distance.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to take a look at that.
So it's because I remember when Strix first came out, because the poor hygiene debuffs them more the closer they get, that if you were playing at a wider resolution, they might stop further out of range. Yep. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for going through the. I don't know how many questions that was. It was a few dozen questions related to the UI and everything else. And I know you're busy, so
done.
Yeah.
Back to it.
Thanks for joining us.
I can't talk about it.
And then we'll see which one of you wins rock, paper, scissors next time.
Fair enough. All right.
All right, Dave. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And then I will adjust this and move where I'm sitting and transition because it looks like my party is going to wipe. And welcome our guest as soon as I can get this thing to show up properly, because for some reason my Zoom is not. It should be showing this as a full screen, but it's not right now. Oh, there we go. Oh my God. That's the one. I wonder why it's doing that. So I'm going to welcome Anna, and then I apologize in advance because I'm going to have to remove my face feed because I don't know why it's not working properly. So I will just stop my video, and then hopefully this will adjust the way that it's supposed to. No, it is not. Well, that's cool. So I'm going to be fiddling with this live like I totally wanted to. And we can welcome Anna Prosser to our stream. So welcome, Anna. Don't mind me while I'm fixing this at the same time that you are here. I think I have your mic unmuted. I cannot hear you, so no. Are you muted on your end? Perhaps? Nope, still hearing nothing. Video is working. I don't know if this is a Zoom thing. No. I can hear you. You're quiet, but you're coming in.
Quiet still, huh?
Okay, yeah, no, that's a little better.
Okay, let me see what I can bump up for you here.
Cool. And then
right.
at the same time, I'm going to try and figure out why this decided to change the way that it displays things for me, because it normally puts this in a window, and it's not doing it.
Sound is good now, though?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
I bet that's better, isn't it?
Oh, there we go. You're here.
You know, for how many people there are at Twitch who stream, it's strange how many settings get changed every time I leave this room and come back to it.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because when I got into our streaming closet this morning, somebody had been using it for a call yesterday, and like every single setting everywhere was different. And like as soon as I turned the setup on, I'm like, start talking, I'm like, no, that's weird, I can't hear myself. Oh, the video's kind of crooked, and oh wait, no, somebody else was using this room.
Yep.
So thank you for joining us. I'm just gonna quickly complete this because I apparently can't progress past area 275. But Evelyn was tanking all the way there, which is a good sign.
Heck yeah.
Because this morning she wasn't. We were just like, oh wait, no, we need to make an adjustment, and hotfix went out, and so now it's the Evelyn show, which
Good.
is pretty sweet. Yeah. So I know how busy you are, so thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to join our show.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Anytime I can talk about D&D in the middle of my workday is time I do not begrudge.
It's fun, isn't it? It
is.
I'm new to it, and I'm really enjoying it so far. It's no complaints. It's I want to say it's a dream come true, but I think maybe I wouldn't be in a streaming closet if it was a dream come true. But other than that, no complaints at all. So just based on your, because I think it was on Instagram or Twitter post the other day, you were working on pre-production for TwitchCon and for E3, and then obviously you're hosting the event next week, and you're on Dice Camera Action, and you work at Twitch, and you host Misclicks. How does one have the time to do everything?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think just at some point in the last decade, I just decided that I was just going to try and just keep moving as long as I could and just not stop. And that's served me pretty well, I think.
Like a shark.
Yeah, like a shark. That's
going.
Exactly it. Like you start to think like, maybe I should rest. And then you're like, if I rest, I will die. And then you just keep going.
Okay, fair enough. So, like, this was a conscious decision, or you just kind of like, did you fall into it?
I've always kind of been the kind of person who wants to do everything. I don't like picking favorites. Like, if you ask me what my favorite movie is, it'll be like an hour-long conversation because I'll have to explain why I have to categorize every single one and then tell you my favorites in each genre for each mood.
Yeah.
And I've always been that type of kid where I was just in a million activities and like kind of one of those jack of all trades kind of people. And so I think that bled into my professional life where I was like, I want to do all of these things and I don't want to have to pick just one and I don't want to feel trapped in one. So I'm just going to try to do them all at the same time. And I don't know, I think in some ways that's been a detriment to me. But in other ways, it has lent me a lot of really, really cool opportunities. And most of all, gained me a lot of really good stories.
Yeah, no doubt. I imagine. Yeah. Okay, well, on that note, what's your favorite one of those stories to tell?
I just told you how hard it is for me to pick favorites, and then you asked the favorite story.
Well, I was going to ask what your favorite movie is, but we don't have a full hour, so.
Well, I am actually. I don't know if you can see. I'm Disney bound for Han Solo today. I've got my leggings on and everything.
Oh,
I'm so Star Wars original trilogy is the stock answer for favorite movies, and I'm seeing Solo tonight.
Oh, sweet! I am as well.
Nice.
But I'm not dressed up. I don't have a Han Solo outfit. I had to scrape together an outfit to wear for next week, so it's going to be...
For the stream?
It's going to be evident that I'm not a cosplayer right away. But hopefully some other people will also not be cosplayers, and then I won't look too out of place.
I think there will be a wide range. I'm not supposed to be in cosplay. I was kind of bummed because I was like, oh, hey, I'm the host. Do you want me dressed in like a host of a, some sort of fitting in Waterdeep kind of thing? And they're like, no, just wear normal clothes. You're like the narrator. And I was like, oh. Okay, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I don't want you in golden plate mail walking around.
Well, I get to be Evelyn for the Dice Camera Action games. So I get
excellent.
To be
okay.
Then. But when I'm doing my official hosting duties, I'm as myself, as Anna Prosser Robinson.
Okay. Now, I could have sworn the whole cast of Dice Camera Action hasn't been in the same place at the same time yet, right?
I know. I'm so excited. I could die. I've been trying so hard to get everybody in the same place at the same time for so long, and everyone's going to be there. Everyone's going to be in cosplay. This is the first live game we've ever all done together. We were going to do PAX Unplugged, but Nate had flight trouble and ended up not being able to join us. So
okay.
Pat Rothfuss jumped in though, so that was pretty cool.
He seems fun. I haven't met him, but it's always entertaining to watch him play.
He played a paladin too, which was fun for me, of course. having another paladin to kind of play off of, and the game was fun.
Oh, were competing gods or similar?
Not competing gods. I mean, not the same god, but they had similar kind of like viewpoints, I guess. So it was fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
We're probably going to get a few questions in from the people tuned into the stream as we go. I don't know if you have it on your screen.
Oh, sure, I can pull it up.
But Erica, who produces this with me from her chair, dumps the questions into a chat document while we're talking as well. So I just have those coming up.
Okay.
Somebody asking, I assume this is a question about related to Dice Camera Actions crossover with Acquisitions Inc. Hi, Anna. Any resentment from having pieces of your soul stolen?
You know, I've been trying to figure out whether Evelyn knows that happened or not, because she was, if you haven't watched recent episodes, spoiler alert, cover your ears. But she was deceased and then was resurrected, and as part of that ritual, Dieth and Strix gave the rings that she had imparted a part of her soul in the last time she was dead. Long story. And they gave those rings to Omen because they thought that having a part of her soul would help with the resurrection, even though it actually helped not at all. But Omen just kept them and and just took them and gave them to the C team, I guess. And so I'm not sure that Evelyn knows that happened. I can't decide whether she would notice they're not wearing them or not. But whatever it is, she hasn't said anything about it. And I think it's because she typically has a habit of just like not wanting to impose. Like if something is special to her that she gave to someone, and even like the example is she gave Paulton her family signet ring a long time ago, and she like never brings it up because it's like she's like too nervous about it being weird that like oh, you're so important to me, but like it's cool if like I'm not important to you, like it's whatever,
She would just blush and get flustered and
yeah.
Fair enough.
So I think, I'm not sure if she knows yet. Me, I think I was like really, there was definitely a reaction at first. I was like, what? You can't just take those. But it's actually brought about some really, really fun crossover things that are happening. Like Cathris is wearing one from the C team. And so his character is starting to exhibit some like eerily cheery disposition because Evelyn's soul being in that ring. And then there's some correspondence happening between Omen and Evelyn after that whole resurrection thing, so that's really fun. So I'm always one for an Infinity War, so I'm down.
The Infinity War. I don't want to get into that again. I was talking to Lauren Oboe Crazy. We started talking about it on another stream, and we probably would have just talked about it for the whole thing. But yeah, it's
tempting.
It's really.
I'm sorry
tempting.
I put that tasty, tantalizing tidbit out there in front of you.
Was that something that, like, do you know if that's just something that Jerry came up with on the spot for that thing? Like did
crush?
No, the rings, the improv, like you're like, oh yeah, and I need I could use these, and he just like takes them. Just, I mean, it's so in character for Omen, obviously, but I'm
pretty sure. I mean, it wasn't like he planned it, but it's so definitely what Omen would do. Like, why would he give back a valuable magical artifact if it was given to him and nobody asked for it back?
Okay. One of our audience members, Giant Dwarf. I don't know how often Giant Dwarf shows up in DCA chat, but is in all of ours. With a name like Marthane, are you a big fan of Record of Lodos War, also known as D&D the anime?
I can't claim to be. I can tell you where Marthane actually came from, which is that Evelyn was originally a character in a campaign that I did on Misclicks. Because I've been playing D&D on Misclicks almost 5 years now, every Tuesday night, and we've done a lot of campaigns. A lot of my characters have died. I have a particularly brutal DM, and Evelyn was one of my favorites that died way before her time. She was in a campaign called Outbreak that was based on a zombie apocalypse.
Okay.
And originally she was a paladin of Martha, and so I just like thought that maybe her surname was changed to be somehow, I don't know, related to that. And then when I revamped her, I completely forgot that that's why and just chose a different god. But Lathander is a much better fit for her. But Marthane, originally I built her to be kind of like a very mother character, and she evolved from mother into like leaning even further into the kind of like flawed optimism side. And so I leaned more into that with the sunshine thing. And the motherly thing is still there, but it's less the thing for her. So that's where Marthane came from.
Oh, interesting. On a similar note, because Holly has talked a lot about what parts of her have become Strix. What parts of Anna become Evelyn?
Man, that is a fun and vulnerable and crazy question. I think that this particular D&D game has been a special brand of therapy that I like did not expect. I think the parts of Evelyn that I originally made to be me were this kind of what I was just talking to. This is very vulnerable. You're gonna get. I'm an open book. You're gonna get it. Hopefully, you want it.
Okay.
The desire to love people unbridled and just like constantly talk about how much you care about people, and also kind of just like own that part of yourself, and to own a set of beliefs that adhere to that. So in this case, her faith, kind of represents this idea that I have often been in situations in my life where I have a very a desire to be very outward about caring about people, and also a desire to really be myself and own my own set of kind of like values, desires, those kinds of things, but then have a fear of like, if I push too hard, even with positivity, even with love, then I will be rejected, or I will push people away. And so I think what Evelyn was kind of like a way to do that in a comical way, and just be like so outward that I could let people make fun of it and make fun of it myself, and at the same time kind of experience that freedom. And what's been so cool is that over time, when I first started with Evelyn, everyone was like, oh, what a comical one-dimensional character. I get it. Oh, it's so annoying that she's constantly talking about Lathander, and she's constantly like hanging on everybody and like overly optimistic all the time. And then what's been cool is watching people kind of be like, oh, there is depth to her. And like, I would have completely discounted her the first time I met her, but now that I've gotten to know her, I see that there's more to somebody. And I think that's something that like I just like desire so much, is for people to understand that there's so much below the surface with everybody, and that your first impressions of them or the assumptions you have based on what you know about them are so rarely a complete picture of who they are. So this is a very long-winded answer, but I guess I see her her optimism, her positivity, her outwardness, and her convictions as things that I kind of injected that were me. And there are a lot of things in her that were the opposite of me that were really fun. Like, for example, I see myself as pretty indecisive in a lot of ways. Some ways, not others, but I tend to like evaluate every option so much, where Evelyn is like, this seems like a good idea, and goes. And that's so freeing to me to play, that it's like a habit that I wanted to develop and get into. And so that's been helpful, playing her as the opposite of me as well.
It's funny, I got a growing list of questions here, but there's one that actually ties pretty closely into this, I think. Talking about different aspects of yourself you play, and like what your characters do and don't share in common with you. One Artificial Moon wants to know, she's like, or they are like, Anna, I've seen you play many different types of characters on your variety of streams. Are there any archetypes you won't touch?
I don't think there's any I would not touch. I tend to ascribe to the idea, I agree with what Pro Jared says in some of his instructional videos about D&D, if you're just beginning, that playing a group of evil characters can be really tough to make a fun story. So yeah, and I mean, some people make it work, but I think it's really difficult. Like, you have to really think about how you're telling the story instead of just like play the game, because if you play the game as a group of evil characters, ultimately everyone just like chaos murders each other. So I've typically stayed away from fully evil characters I guess. But I dabble in them. I mean, if everyone remembers Evelyn of Shar, that was a really fun dabble, you know, but just like in the middle of something else. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else I particularly don't like to make. I get kind of bored if the character only has like one thing to do, but most character archetypes aren't even like that anymore. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think of, I mean, I took a long gap in how all the D&D I played because I only recently got into it over the last couple of years again. But I used to really hate playing like just a fighter. I go in, I attack 2 times or more, and like that's all my character does because I used to think that was a boring way to play the game until I got more into it and realized that like the character is only as boring as you make them. Like.
Right.
You know, they could be an indecisive fighter, or you know, there's a million different character aspects that you can throw into it to try and make it more interesting. And then also seeing how some people play characters that seem like they might be a one-dimensional character, and then they end up being really interesting.
Right.
And so it totally changed my perspective on like, actually, you know what? Maybe a conceptually simple class wouldn't be the worst thing because you can always create a very interesting character out of them, and do that instead. So.
I think I am drawn to paladins because they have kind of that like variety of, they are spellcasters but also very strong fighters, and I think that the other thing I like to maybe project probably is the feeling of like liking to be strong for your friends, you know, being able to put yourself out there in the front line take the hits. And so I originally played a lot of kind of like wizards, rangers, that kind of stuff, and quickly realized I don't like playing that way. I don't like having to hide. I like going, you know. And so I think maybe that's an answer to that. Not that I wouldn't play those, but I have eschewed them lately because I much more enjoy being like a throw yourself into the fire kind of player.
Frontline. Okay. Let's see. Palenda says, thank you for all the moments in dice camera action and all the other stuff that you do. Oh, and the DMing series.
Thank you for being a part of it. It's always so crazy when people say thank you for the moments in DCA, because I feel so strongly that the community around Dice Camera Action is what has made it so great, and they have contributed so much. We talk a lot here at Twitch, you know, about not only interactive media but like multiplayer experiences, and I have never been part of a medium quite like live role-playing shows where it is collaborative storytelling on such a large scale. And the inspiration that flows between us and every audience member, and the amount of feeling that they help us to have by being there and participating in chat and making fan art and being on the subreddit and coming up to us in person and saying, hey, this affected me or this helped me, is so much a part of the story, as much a part of the story as what we do in many ways. So
yeah, and when all else fails, somebody in the audience probably knows the answer to that technical question, or remembers something that you might have forgotten.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, it's I mean, I'm newer to D&D on streaming because it just never occurred to me that it would be a thing. You know, this time last year, had no idea.
My first D&D game ever was on stream, in fact.
Oh wow!
Yeah. I never played before I played on stream.
Mine was in a like many people. Mine was in a darkened room somewhere when I was a teenager. So, but it's crazy, and the fans are just so passionate. It's unreal.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of fan art flying around on just on Twitter. I don't pay attention to a lot of other channels, but it's staggering.
The thing that's crazy too, we exclaim about this all the time, us players, is that the audience oftentimes knows something that we think is a secret, and we have no idea how they figured it out. Like, things will pop up in fan art or in fan fiction that like I've been keeping as like a secret reveal, and someone just is like, hey, I just had this idea, I think this is how it is. I don't know how they do it, but they know the story just as well as we do.
Yeah, I think there's also unlike a lot of other forms of entertainment or even just other shows that you watch, there is an authenticity and a feeling of intimacy with this, like just as an observer, just watching a stream. Because yes, you get to watch somebody acting out a character, but you also get to see them more or less having a fun game with their friends. So it's a totally different thing. It's weird. It's like eavesdropping on a living room of your friends in a way. But obviously there's a digital barrier between you.
Well, that's true, and I think D&D goes a step beyond that, even in what we've been talking about, with the fact that you ultimately inject something about yourself into the character, whether it's like playing something that is so not you that you're experimenting with it, or trying to have an experience that will teach you something, or just plain like letting yourself play through your character. So there's a level of vulnerability to watching a role play show that you don't even get when you're watching like a sitcom or even a Let's Play stream or something like that, that I think takes courage, but the payoff is so good. I think that's why I'm so obsessed with it, because it's communication on another level about kind of our humanity. I mean, which is ascribing a lot to a game, but
No, I believe it. It's like the direction that chatting with Holly that we inevitably went into as well. People, there was a news article in like The Guardian or something talking about people using D&D to get people to role play experiences wildly outside their comfort zone, so they can get a better understanding of what it's like to live in different ways, and like using it for therapy, which is, I'm like, it never occurred to me at first, but when you read it, you're like, yeah, this makes sense. That sounds like it would work. It's kind of like it totally would be good for that kind of moment when you start to think about it that way. Yeah.
And it also, there's so many things that can help you kind of like conceptualize how the world works too. I mean, even the fact that you're rolling dice reminds you that like, no matter what you do, sometimes things are just out of your control and you just have to roll with the punches. I think as someone who does so many different things and works so hard to try to control a lot of different avenues, it's good to remember that kind of anything could happen mentality.
Absolutely. I imagine you're very good at adapting to dynamic situations by now, given the things that you're working
in
on.
Dice Camera Action, sure. Yes, I think by now it has come to be the norm that things will be not as expected.
Yeah. You're all drowning. What? Yeah. Okay, what else do we have here? We got a bunch of questions that I assume are related to different games. Let's see. Anna, are you ready to fight Strahd? Do you think he is mad that you put him into a doll?
Man, I know we're going to have to fight Strahd again. We always have to fight Strahd again. It is our lot in life to fight Strahd again. But at this point, like, I'm going to be honest, I'm ready. I'm ready to see our old friend Strahd again. It always is a good emotional time. We always get deep in our feels. And then, behind the scenes, Holly and Jared and Nate and I are just like screaming at each other in text chat. It's a really, really good time. I think that's something that actually the Dice Camera Action has had an effect on me. It's helped me fall more in love with sad and scary stories. So I'm all about it. Sure. That's what brings out the true emotion in our characters a lot of times.
So in addition to playing games that way, is that something that you find you look for in your entertainment as well? Like, do you like to watch that kind of like role play, I guess?
I think you mean, do I look for like sad and scary things?
Yeah.
I think by nature I tend to be a happy endings kind of girl. Like I tend to like want the good guys to get it in the end, and I love the like, the someone turns from evil and becomes good. I love those things, and I think that, I guess what I appreciate is when a story can be told that has elements that make you feel so deeply and then reward you so well. So I guess maybe I like the span. I guess it just has helped me appreciate that kind of storytelling even more than I did before, and look for those like highs and lows and enjoy them even more.
Okay.
I mean, I love a good Disney movie as much as the next girl, like, let's be honest. But
yeah, I mean, my fiance is always pushing to watch the funner stuff, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it. Just,
I do. I will say I'm not much of a like hopeless story fan. If something just like doesn't teach you anything, the only point of it is to make you feel bad or to like just make you feel hopeless. I'm so not into that. I just can't. It has to have a meaning. It has to have some sort of edifying purpose.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not into it.
So not a fan of The Road is what you're saying.
I don't think I've seen that, which is probably good.
It was one of the most bleak experiences. It was kind of like At least the gray had a post-credit sequence that was a little bit less
I
horrifying.
did not like the gray. I did not like that movie at all.
It was bleak, but I don't know if you watched through the credits of that movie. I didn't know there was a post-credit scene until like a year after I saw it. I just thought it was
I'm not sure I did either, actually.
Yeah, it's just like it cuts. It's like one long shot that goes over the body of the wolf, and then it exhales, and then you see that he's still breathing too, and then it's over.
Oh.
So I guess they fought.
That still doesn't do much for me.
No, it was.
I don't like movies that the whole point is just to punch me in the face over and over.
Yeah,
you know?
And the road was worse.
I feel bad.
Yeah, the road was a grueling journey of bleakness. Yeah, if you're feeling nihilistic and you want the world to end, it'd be a good thing to watch. But it was intense otherwise. Sorry if I spoiled the gray.
Hope. It's got to have good. It's got to have a glimmer of hope.
Yeah. Zool with 7 U's would like to know if you already know what kind of makeup you will wear as Evelyn. Last time we saw her, she was dolled up as a construct.
Yeah, I don't get to wear the gold makeup anymore. I usually do just kind of a very light naturals and shimmers and petal colors for Evelyn as far as makeup. And I will say something that I haven't figured out how to actually work into the game roleplay wise is that I imagine that when she turned back from a construct to human, she had markings from the engravings that used to be on her construct body, either looking like tattoos or maybe they're metallic or maybe they look like birthmarks or brands. I can't figure out what they look like, and so I've just been trying to figure out how I'm going to represent that at the stream because I just don't have a lot of time to figure that out. So I'm going to try to do that, but if I don't, everyone just has to imagine it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. So, because Evelyn has gone through some transitions at this point, how much time do you spend going over what that really looks like?
You mean visually?
Yeah, I guess when you're describing what's changed to your character, or maybe Chris is describing what has changed for your character, all those things.
It's really interesting to share control of that with Chris. One of the most startling or something that affected me very, very deeply was when Evelyn became a construct, and then Chris would pepper things that I didn't realize about her new body at me while I was role playing. And so it would be Evelyn cries, and he's like, she can't. And those feelings are so strange when you're inhabiting a character and you go to do something and your body no longer does that expression. As someone who my entire background is in speech communication and nonverbal communication is my particular enthusiasm. So when I'm trying to emote and I can't emote, it's like I have I don't know. It's a crazy, crazy feeling. So so that affected me very deeply. So I thought a lot about that. And then there was a lot of things where I'm like, okay, if she is this, then that. And I actually read a lot of fan fiction behind the scenes just to help me process how she thinks and works and interacts and things like that. Yeah. So yes, I spend a lot of time, but I also leave it very vague intentionally because fan artists usually come up with things that I didn't even think of that are way better. So I try to give an overarching description and then let them fill in the details a lot of times.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that must be interesting because you probably at this point get enough fan art that you can be like, hey, that's a great idea. And that's a great idea too.
Dang. Just like right now, Indigo 5 Alpha says it can be white ink tattoos. That is a great idea. I love that.
That's cool.
That's way easier for me to do in cosplay too than what I was thinking.
And yeah, great idea.
I know. See? Thanks.
Cool.
Got it.
Let's see. What else do we got? Aya Golender wants to know if you are excited to meet Magnus.
Magnus?
Magnus. Yeah, I don't know what that's from.
Should I know? See, I have been so busy, you guys. I'm flying by the seat of my pants where there's a lot of things I should know and have been told. And I'm like, oh yeah, that is totally that thing. I don't know. I think I'm meeting Magnus at the Stream of Many Eyes or something. It's probably a character I should know.
I'm not sure. Sorry. It doesn't come to mind. The only Magnus I can think of is Magneto, and that's not the right thing. So.
Sorry.
Huh, okay.
I don't know if if you're talking about Magnus the Red, the Warhammer model. I've already met him. My husband is obsessed with Warhammer. He lives in Magnus is in a place of honor in my apartment.
Oh wow, cool. Wait, are we allowed to talk about Warhammer on this channel? Probably not. So moving on.
Sorry, Hasbro.
Azrael Ravenheart. Are all the Waffle Crew members hoarders, since they all like to carry large stashes of random things? Pretty things for Evelyn, super high quality garbage for Strix.
The Waffle Crew has like nothing, and they have no home. So I think that in a lot of cases makes you more of a hoarder, because you're like, well, I might need this thing. I guess I better carry it, and I probably won't be able to afford it later, so I better save it. So I guess so.
Okay. This is an interesting one. Our Green Paradox. Anna, do you and the DCA crew have backup characters ready, considering how often Chris kills you?
Dude, I know maybe I should, and a lot of people have asked me that, especially when Evelyn died the last time. There was an opinion that maybe she shouldn't come back, and they were asking me about my backup character. I can't bring myself to do it. I'll do it when I get there. But no, she's just the DCA spot in my heart is for her. I can't. I love her too much.
On the note of the last time your character died, did you know that was coming, or was that just the session? Okay, I was wondering about that.
I don't think anyone did. It was totally an accident, which made it all the more traumatic. Yeah,
that was a traumatic episode to watch.
So many fun things came out of it, though, like so many little character things.
Yeah,
I'm just always watching for the little subtleties, because all of us players want this show to go on forever. We want there to be 20 seasons. We still want to be playing. And so the temptation is to like reveal a lot of things about your character, because you want the audience to know and appreciate why you're making certain decisions. But a lot of times there are things that I know about either my character or the other players' characters that they are so subtly hinting at in those kind of like moments of duress that are so fun to kind of record and analyze. Mm-hmm. So that was really fun. But the dying part was a little bit traumatic. The most traumatic part of it actually though was not traumatic. It was more like Chris just messes with your brain, and he does it on purpose for good role playing. But he told me that when Evelyn eventually did come back, it would be as though she had lived a year in this other realm. And so I spent a whole week being like, how do I get my brain that I play this character every week and she's developing slowly and I learn things about her every week. How do I conceptualize the idea of a whole year? Like, who is she in a year after spending a year in the realm of her god with people who are constantly affirming her, and like they agree that Lathander's great so she doesn't have to proselytize all the time, So how does she change over that year? And then when she does come back, Chris is like, yeah, well, you don't remember that. I
was wondering if you were going to know that or not.
No, I had no idea. And he was like, yeah, death is like really discombobulating, isn't it? I was like, you, Chris Perkins?
Yeah, it sure is. Thanks. Yeah.
But so that has been crazy to roleplay too, because if you think about it, if you had an entire year of soul development and then you didn't have that development mentally because you forgot it all, your brain and your heart are just fighting each other, because your brain thinks this is what you should want and think, and your heart is like, no, you've matured a year since then. So for right now, that's like a huge amount of character tension that Evelyn is having with herself, which is kind of genius storytelling as usual with Chris Perkins.
Yeah, that sounds intense. My DM, while malicious, is not quite as emotionally intense.
We joke all the time that Chris Perkins somehow knows everything about us and knows exactly how to emotionally.
I get the distinct impression watching the show that his emotional intelligence is so high that he knows how to twist the knife on anything that you do.
I completely agree with that. 100%.
Let's see, what else do we have for questions? The Green Rex. If Evelyn was to die and become an invisible spirit, what would Evelyn do to help her friends?
Well, it totally depends on what Chris Perkins will let an invisible spirit do. I guess her main desire is for them to all just like find happiness and success and be safe. So I guess it would be a lot of whispering encouragement, because I assume that's all a spirit can probably do. Or like if her aura still worked, she'd just literally like hang around them all the time, like she kind of already does. You know,
Boosting
just like
saves. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is interesting. I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but Baron Stromgard, one of our regulars. Anna, do you feel having Evelyn in the same Idle Champions formation as Strix is sufficiently suboptimal and representative of what Chris Perkins has said about the DCA party being suboptimal? Or do you think they're too strong together? And to give you a hint, I am using both right now, and that's what I was using just before you joined, and they are quite strong together.
You know, the thing is that individually they're suboptimal, but when they work together, they're very strong. So I think it is absolutely on point. And I think that's what season 4 is going to actually be mostly about. That's my prediction, is that we have been running from everything for 3 seasons and just reacting for 3 seasons. And we just got majorly called out by the fact that, like, that's not going to work forever. And if we really want to be strong, it's about stepping back and considering each other, and working together and being a little more strategic and considerate. So I think maybe that's a glimpse of things to come, because this is Idle Champions is not necessarily in any point of canon. You know, this could be like in the far future.
This is any time over the span of whatever time we feel like it is in that moment, basically.
Right.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Yes, there's a Modron March, but they don't happen that often. And yes, you know, these people are there, but some of them might be dead.
And Morning Glory has wings, even though, you know, she only did that in heaven. I just wanted it to have wings.
Yeah, it looks good with wings. Yeah.
I think so too.
Okay, let's see another one. Era Bustekra. Why would you say a pure evil party is something you wouldn't play? I didn't understand the person you referenced. Just seems like a pure chaos party would be feared, not to mention a pure evil party seems like the ultimate anti-hero story.
The reason, I referenced Pro Jared, who is one of the other players in Dice Camera Action. He has a great series of videos about like learning D&D, and in one of those, he just said it in a way that really made sense to me, which was that when you have all evil characters, certainly this is not an overarching statement. There are ways to tell a good story about all evil characters if you're very considerate about the story. But most of the time, when you sit down to the table and it's just a bunch of evil characters, they're gonna, within the party, they're gonna try to out evil each other. Like, no one's gonna take care of each other. They're not gonna collaborate on any goals. And if you have 4 or 5 characters bumbling through objectives, trying to hurt each other just as much as they're trying to do an objective, I have found that it usually doesn't go anywhere satisfying story-wise for me. So, however, again, caveat, if you are cognizant of that and you give good reasons for all these evil people to be loyal to each other and to have common goals, and you have a story arc that makes sense for them, totally doable.
Yeah, I think isn't Nate's new show, Dark and Dicey, aren't they evil characters in that? I haven't watched it yet.
I don't know for sure what their alignments are, but see, that's why that caveat makes so much sense, because all of those people are excellent storytellers and have put a ton of thought into why these people would hang out together and what their common goals are. In my opinion, that show works. I adore that show. It's only been 2 episodes, but each time I've been alone in my apartment, like, snort laughing, because all of them are such amazing actors too, that the voice acting is quality, the storytelling is quality. So
yeah,
this is a really good example of something that, like, I would preach to all of D&D-dom, no matter who says it, whether it's me, anyone else. If they try to give a concrete rule of, like, D&D can't be played this way or shouldn't be played this way, or you should never or always do anything in D&D, discount it. Yeah. There's always an exception, because you should play however you like and do it in the best way. So I love Dark and Dicey. That's not what I'm saying.
It has a killer theme song too.
Yeah.
As soon as it started, I'm like, this is awesome. But I'm like 10 minutes into the first episode, so I need to get back to that at some point.
Only 10 minutes in the first? Oh, you are in for a treat.
Yeah. Well, people keep talking about how funny it is, so I'm like, oh, sweet. I'll get to it.
It's really funny.
It's in my queue. I have more than one paused tab open at the moment.
I understand. So there's way too much D&D to watch. I'm having trouble keeping up.
It is hard keeping up. There's a lot of good stuff that's worth watching. So yeah. Tarkus wants to know, what did you do before all of this? They're new to streaming.
Before all of this being streaming, I assume?
Yeah, I guess so, because they're new to streaming, and that seems like an enormous question, so.
I did a lot of things. How far back should I start? I started out in aquatics. I was a lifeguard and swim instructor and lead instructor as like a coach. That took me to Dubai, where I was a lifeguard consultant for a while. When I got back, I worked in finance for a while as a recruiter. I quit that to compete at Miss USA. I finished that and moved to Arizona to manage the Team Evil Geniuses Pro Gaming House, which then we morphed into a media agency. So I started doing more video content production. I have always been a performer, so I did a lot of that in and out, but like really honed in on it about that point and started doing a ton of esports tournament hosting along with the other kind of fine art performing type things that I did, stage and choir and singing and that kind of stuff. That morphed into more of a general like hosting and commercial acting kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Good Game Agency got acquired by Twitch, which brought me here, which made me the lead producer of Twitch Studios eventually. And that span is where it gets really complicated because I actually have like 3 jobs now that are all kind of interconnected but kind of separate. So that's the brief version.
No, that's good. Yeah. You did that in a minute. 2 minutes.
I went to school for international studies and speech communication. I have a dual degree in that and a minor in Spanish. So I thought I wanted to be working in helping people communicate across cultural borders, which I kind of think I am in just a different way than I thought I was.
Cool. I'm so used to people saying, "Oh, I never used my degree," and then they do something completely different because that's the job they ended up in. So it's cool that you've found a way to tie back to it.
Communication studies is something communication science is something that everyone uses every day, whether they know it or not,
Yeah. I don't have anything insightful to add right now. I feel like there should be some sort of like, I don't know, quote or something I could cite, but not at the moment. Okay, let's see. Artificial Moon says, on this stream, Holly mentioned that she used her degree on the doing a line of Markovia moment. Have you had a moment like that in any of your games?
Where I've used my degree? That's a good question. Communication theory teaches you a lot about why people say certain things and what they want when they say certain things and the expectations people have when they maintain relationships. So I think I use that a lot in my role playing to key in on when a character is signaling something that they want, and I can play with that either by giving or not giving them what they want. I have a lot of fun with that. Interpersonal communication and relationship maintenance are a huge part of the game itself. So I think like I said, communication science used like kind of all the time. So I'm kind of using my degree all the time. And then sometimes more formally than others, I guess.
How do you find that differs between being a player and being a DM?
You definitely do the same things, but for me, being a DM is interesting because it's the balance of that with also sometimes knowing when to be quiet and let the players do it, because you have to be really patient, because a lot of times the temptation with a DM is to fill the space. If there's a pause, like, oh no, my players aren't having fun, they're bored, nothing's happening, I have to do something. But sometimes it takes 30 seconds, a while for someone to think, oh, my character wants this or wants to say this to someone. Because when you're role playing in real time, it's different than reading from a script or knowing a story already. You have to kind of process it and then do it. So I think that's maybe how it differs for me so far.
Okay. Let's see. Candyman. What is your favorite D&D stream to watch, excluding ones that you are a part of?
we talked about favorites and how
I know.
It's very difficult for me.
That wasn't from me. That was from
I know.
From Candyman with 2 Ds.
Let's see. Gosh, I don't know. I love so many for so many different reasons. No, I'm not gonna do it. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna pick a favorite.
That's probably I think the best play.
Yep.
That is an optimal play.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in a different direction, Sevdex wants to know what you think dragon turtle meat would taste like.
I have been a vegetarian since I was, let's see, how many years? I've been 17 years I've been a vegetarian. So
that's wild.
Even if I could conceptualize, I probably wouldn't remember. I mean, like, everything tastes like chicken, I guess. I don't know.
Fair enough. Okay. This one looks like a bigger Waffle Crew question. All right, Mystery Block Gaming. Anna, how do you think that secret society will confront the Waffle Crew after the Dragon Turtle incident? I just think it's funny that you found out that they weren't interested in the crew and left the city, and then you unintentionally caused their attention to be drawn to you.
Whoops.
Maybe a little bit.
How do I think that's gonna go? Is that what's being asked?
How do you think they will confront the Waffle Crew?
Probably out of the shadows when we least expect it, in a very traumatic and scary way, when it's least convenient, when we're busy trying to do something else.
Now that Evelyn has a body again, you'll never be willing to take a bath in a bathhouse again because you got attacked by assassins every time or something.
Dude, yeah. I was so mad. No one would come to the bathhouse with me. I get, brutally murdered. I get saved by the tabaxi. I had that 35 gold that I gave the tabaxi the entire game, by the way. I have never had to buy anything. Evelyn just had this money that
that's like your starter pack gold.
Yeah. So she spent it all. She's like, hey, thanks. Here's all my gold.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, take all my money. It's literally everything I have. Okay, let's see. Roshi139. Did you see the last C-Team episode? And if so, how did you feel about Evelyn being called Omen's paramour?
I didn't see the whole thing yet. That's one of the paused ones in my queue. But I did see the certain clips where Omen was talking about Evelyn. I think, man, it's fun. It's going to be really fun to see where that goes. When you say, how do I feel about him being Evelyn's paramour? I mean, that's quite presumptuous at this point. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. But, now that his intentions are clear, we'll see how Evelyn responds. Although I don't think his intentions are clear to Evelyn yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's that's interesting. So, I mean, you play Evelyn on one show mostly, but you kind of in a way have to keep up with more than one show just to have an idea of what else is going on, and
yeah,
that's interesting.
It is. It's really fun, especially now that kind of a lot of the audience has caught on with this crossover, and so they will report to us between shows.
That's probably helpful, actually.
It is. It's very helpful because sometimes we don't have time to watch each other's shows. When you put together all of the hours of D&D that we play and would want to watch, it's astronomical. If you're someone who has multiple things you also have to do to be a productive human. But they'll clip me things like, did you see this? Or like, during the episode, Omen said this, and that helps a lot. So yeah, I think that's going to be really fun. And actually, Jerry mentioned Pride and Prejudice on the show and how he was comparing Omen to Mr. Darcy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And I happen to be a huge Pride and Prejudice fan. I am a lover of period dramas. I know that story very well, and I think it's interesting that he would choose Mr. Darcy, and I think we will see where his character actually is.
I could just picture you two doing that argument on stage at PAX or something, but as those characters, but almost the same dialogue, probably.
Dude, yeah. So it's really fun too to do like actuals outside of the role play, like making those letters that Evelyn has written to Omen and receiving his letters back. Making actual props and having outside the game things is really fun. We did that too with the C-Team when we did the Secret Santa at Christmas. We had a Secret Santa gift exchange on Twitter. So we role played the whole thing in real time on Twitter though. So it was really fun, and every character got a present from another character. They had like random draws, And so our characters know each other, but they've never played together, except when Strix was on C Team.
Yeah, I watched that. That was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Just the timing of it, because I remember watching the Dice Camera Action episode where I guess she gets shanked by the two Shadow Arkai, and then she like drops, and then she disappears, and then she shows up in the other one. They're like, "A great wizard's coming!" Poof, splat. They're like, "What the heck is this?"
Sorry.
Yeah.
Whoopsies.
Yeah, that was awesome. Okay, one last question, because I know you're busy. Kotu218, what do you think happened to Dragonbait? Since you abandoned him with an army of Vegapygmies and a baby dinosaur, knowing the character becomes depressed if his friend dies and he has no one to support.
I mean, abandoned is such a strong word. We've abandoned so many people. What do I think happened? I think, I think he's living a satisfied and happy life, waiting for his friend's return with his baby Triceratops and Vegapygmies. I think he maybe is happy with his little crew, and I assume they don't talk very much either, so maybe they all get along.
maybe everything's all right, and there's no way that it might come around to get you later.
Evelyn does not understand how everyone understood Dragonbait, by the way, because she couldn't smell, and nobody mentioned to her that that's how Dragonbait was communicating. They all were just like, "Oh,
I didn't even think of that."
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So Evelyn is like, how does that, like, am I missing something? She was so embarrassed. That's why she wasn't closer to Dragonbait, because she was like, she was like, I'm missing something. I don't get it,
Yeah. The little construct body preventing her from understanding his scent. Okay. Well, it's time for us to wrap it up. So, thank you to our audience for watching the stream, but thank you, Anna, for joining us this week. I understand a little bit better now how busy your schedule is, and so I really appreciate you taking the time to join us in your Han Solo cosplay. And
it's my pleasure.
And I hope the movie's good. I'm crossing my fingers.
I know.
And obviously, thanks to Dave for joining us earlier. What's coming up now? Waffle Talk comes up next at 4, and then the season 1 finale of Holly's show, Trapped in the Birdcage, comes up at 5.
Yeah, so I'll be back then. I'll see you then.
And you will be back then. And then some tiny show that nobody's heard of is on after that. That's called Critical Role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's never going to go anywhere. That one doesn't sound like it'll be popular. So yes, thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We will see you again in a couple weeks, because there's no stream next week because of Streaming Many Eyes. We're catching a flight at that time.
I'm so excited.
So maybe we'll see you there. Anyways, thanks everybody.